What are your Father's Day plans?
We're going to the Ticats home opener. We got the Father's Day pack, which includes great seats and a Tim Hortons Field rewards card, so he can get a gift while we're there.
That sounds like a great plan. How'd you get that?
Just go to ticats.ca/Father's Day for all the details.
From the Ticats Audio Network, this is Ticats Today with Steve Milton.
It's Saturday, June 15th. This is Ticats Today, and I'm Steve Milton. We are, of course, going to look at the Ticats lineup for tomorrow night's home opener against the Saskatchewan Roughriders, and we'll hear from Bo Levi Mitchell quite a bit, and from head coach Scott Milanovich on stepping up the team's offense. And we'll also talk to hard-hitting safety Stavros Katsantonis and 6'4", 225-pound receiver Dezmon Patmon. The latter two are making their Ticats regular season debut tomorrow night. And we'll touch on Father's Day, which is tomorrow, and the Ticats' 1999 Grey Cup team, who will be honored just prior to the opening kickoff. Now, once practices and walkthrough are finished for the week, which they now are, there's a certain atmosphere around a football team, especially at home and especially at the home opener. You can hear it in the louder voices in the locker room, in the more excited pitch of the one-upmanship around the team ping pong table, which is one of the most competitive 10 square meters anywhere in this city. I'm going to give way to some of those voices in this episode of Ticats Today, letting them do most of the talking. Now, last year, the Ticats were only 3-6 at Tim Hortons Field, which, when the team has gone well in the past, has been a very difficult place for visitors to play. The well-spoken Katsantonis says that tomorrow night, it's time to start pushing this season back in that dominant direction.
Oh, yeah, it's always important. That first home game of the season, starting fast, especially in front of the home crowd, that usually sets the tone for the season. So we're just looking to go out there in front of our home fans. We know they're going to be loud, especially when the defense is on the field, and just give them a great show on Sunday.
There will be three different starters from last week's narrow loss in Calgary as Hamilton native Tyler Chanowski, who was injured much of training camp, starts at receiver after Brendan O'Leary Orange, who had a good game in Calgary, has been placed on the 6-game injured list. And marquee shutdown corner Jamal Peters, who was hurt early in training camp, makes his first start on the weak side in his Ticat debut after coming over from Toronto. And while he did play in the second exhibition game in Guelph, this will be most fans' first look at Dezmon Patmon, who figures to eventually play a significant role with his team. He was with Milanovich for a couple of NFL years in Indianapolis. Now, all week it wasn't guaranteed that Peters would be able to play, but he is, and there's not even a GTD, which is game time decision notation, beside his name. That's a relief to Milanovich.
He's a physical, long, athletic boundary corner that isn't afraid to jam receivers, isn't afraid to take chances when he sees something. Student of the game, I spent some time talking to him in the off season, just kind of picking his brain, and I know he studies splits and he studies the other team. So he's a veteran and a guy that I'm not going to say anybody's irreplaceable, but it's great to have him back.
Katsantonis is also looking forward to Peters being in the same starting lineup and being part of the same secondary.
Yeah, I know, and a guy like that, a guy that I connected with early in the offseason, we've been watching a lot of film all offseason, and a guy that was just ready to be bought in as soon as he signed, before the ink was dry, as they say. And even in training camp, right, he was a guy that I think the first 2 days of practice, he had like 7 PBUs, 2 or 3 of those led to turnovers, and I think he had like 2 or 3 interceptions. So getting a guy back like that who's going to be able to impact the game, lock down a side of the field, and a guy that who's a veteran, knows how to play the game, plays with a sense of urgency, and a leader out there is going to be key for us to have him back.
Now, Patmon really stood out in the second exhibition game after joining the team just 5 days earlier. Bo Levi Mitchell was particularly impressed by a stiff arm the big receiver laid on an Argo defender on a screenplay. And Milanovich says Patmon could see some time in 5R, meaning 5 receivers, formation.
How we plan to use him is tough because he's really added to the roster because we have no Canadian backups at this point with 2 guys being out. So we need to have a backup receiver on the roster. Obviously, you lose one and you'd be out of 5R, which is most teams' number 1 package. He's learning 2 different spots right now. And then so he's ready. If there's an injury, he's going to go in. How we use him is going to be determined by how healthy Steven is throughout the game and how healthy the other guys are.
Mitchell is looking forward to the 2 additions to the receiving corps.
Tyler's getting a chance, Dezmon's getting a chance, right? Like, you saw what Dez can do in that preseason game. I think he had, 10 targets in a second half of football there and had 115 yards. And one thing I saw was just physical. Like, he's a big dude. He's not afraid of contact. He's not afraid to hit. Like, I love that. Like, those are the guys you trust to throw the ball to in one-on-one situations and know that, nobody else can come down with it unless it's them. So the one thing that stood out for me was we ran a screen route to him and he stiff-armed the guy. I love seeing that, right? Like, just bring the physical plays. That means he can block too. And obviously he's got the athletic ability and kind of the wherewithal to make some of those back shoulder catches and jump balls and things that you want out of a big play receiver like that. And same with Tyler. Like, Tyler coming in, he brings speed, agile. He knows the offense, can play damn near any position. But like you said, Steve, I mean, we got ballers all over the field. So just keep getting in the ball and let them make plays.
Now, as I promised, we're letting the coach and his players do most of the talking today, letting them carry the ball, so to speak. So here's Patmon on the kind of game he plays, how fans here will recognize him out there.
How can they tell me? All right, so the only receiver wearing 76 is who I am. But strengths, I feel like I'm a big target, they're gonna see what I got. This is gonna be my first game out there, so I'm still trying to see what I got. This is first, like you said, new league and everything, so obviously still gotta get adjusted. First time playing in a real game, so. Hopefully I can go out there and do what I've done, since I've touched the pads, since elementary school,
Outside of Ternosky and Patmon, the Ticat offensive lineup is pretty well the same as it was in Calgary. But Milanovich, who's also the offensive coordinator, says he's looking for a higher standard of expectation and execution from that group. Mitchell was asked what he's looking for from that same group.
Fast start, consistency, and execution. I think when we were on our P's and Q's last week, we looked really good, and we got the guys that when we're on our stuff, we're hard to stop. But I think any offense in professional football, when you're not on your stuff detail-wise, or just one guy's off, here or there, it can slow you down. So I want to get off to a hot start.
As we mentioned, not only is it the home opener, it's Father's Day tomorrow. And football is loaded with coaches whose fathers were coaches and players whose fathers also played. Steve Tasker, father of Ticat legend and current analyst on the Ticats audio network, Luke Tasker, was one of the greatest special teams players in NFL history. Brendan O'Leary Orange, who is now injured, is the son of Doyle Orange, who spent 3 seasons with the Argos and was just the second 1,000-yard rusher in franchise history before ending his CFL career as a Ticat in 1997. And current starting Ticat receiver Keandre Smith is the son of Adrian, nicknamed Pee-wee Smith, who started his career with the Ticats in 1994, but is mostly known for spending a decade with the Argos and winning a Grey Cup there and making the CFL All-Star team 3 times. I talked casually with Keandre this morning, and he had this to say about having a father who played. There was no audio, so here's some of what he said, and I'll have to quote him directly. Quote, "Having a father for a player is a double-edged sword. On the one hand, my father is a great role model. He's the reason I wanted to do this forever. I was 4 or 5 in his last year, and that was a Grey Cup victory year. I knew exactly what was going on. Now, I might not have had the full understanding, but I have vivid memories. I knew at the time the importance of the game and why we were going. I was in the Grey Cup parade. I have pictures of it. That's fond memories for sure. The double-edged sword part is that you're always chasing a legacy as a person. No matter what you do, some achievements aren't only your own, it's shared. It's not always a bad thing, but one of the things is that I don't necessarily want to be compared to my father all the time until it's all said and done." Now, addressing football nepotism, Keandre points out that Pinball Clemens is his godfather, and the Argos didn't choose him in the draft, and that Michael Shea is a very close friend of his dad's, but Winnipeg didn't choose him, and that applies to several teams in the league where his dad has close friends still. He had been an All-Canadian at 2 different spots, returner and receiver at Guelph. He made this on his own merit. And finally, the 1999 Grey Cup team will be honored before the game, and some 24 or so will be on hand tomorrow. They're apparently getting together tonight as a group, and I bet you that one will be a pretty wild one. We'll leave it to Bo Levi Mitchell to describe the inspirational value, if there is any, of having Cup winners on hand right before the kickoff to the first home game of the season.
No, absolutely. I can tell you we can. 2 years ago here, I was still with Calgary's Hall of Fame game, and we were down 24-0. And I remember looking up in the stands, like seeing guys, seeing Hall of Famers, and I was like, is this really how I'm about to play in front of all these guys? And second half, we came out, and as you know, we kind of came back and won that game. And it's just, I think the presence of any great player, any great coach, anybody can always raise that level of play, right? Like, you want to have your own self-motivating factors, but when you have that there, the last team that won a Grey Cup in this building, you want to go out there and, you know, play a little bit extra special for them. So, yeah.
So there you have it. So it's the home opener tomorrow night with lots going on, including the unveiling of the new concept of the Stipley Experience in the South End Plaza of the stadium, open to fans at 5:30 p.m. You can read all about that in the ticats.ca news section. Thanks for listening and viewing, and please join the broadcast team on the Ticats Audio Network for tomorrow night's game. And catch our next episode of this podcast on Monday as we objectively review Sunday night's game. This has been Ticats Today, and I'm Steve Milton.
This has been Ticats Today with Steve Milton. Catch it on Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and anywhere else you get your podcasts.